We're ready to go. That was a busy day for me. I had to teach my class up at College of Marin. Got some awesome Indian food here in Berkeley. That's actually where I am tonight. Berkeley, out of all places. And now I get to talk to you about the 49ers. This is technically a late night in Lombardy. It's 9:54 on the West Coast. Stay or leave. 49ers free agents. We're going to go through the entire list of pending free agents here just about a week before the start of the new league year, less than a week before the start of the legal tampering period. So next Monday, these pending free agents are going to be able to start negotiating with other teams. And starting next Wednesday, the official beginning of the new league year, they can theoretically sign with new teams. So why don't we go through the list of 49ers free agents and predict what is going to happen over the course of the next week. Will they stay or will they leave? And for some of these free agents, it might last beyond the course of the next week. This is all in the spirit of the roster builder that came out today. Obviously, Trey Lance, not a free agent. Nick Bosa, not a free agent. But they are the headliners of our roster builder, which looks like people are still using right now. Late into the night. You see it here up on your screen. You can do a lot as far as the construction of the 2023 49ers goes. You can decide to sign free agents. Speaking of them, you can cut players. You can restructure contracts. You can build the best 49ers roster possible. Already have multiple submissions, and I'm talking dozens and dozens. If you want to become part of the fun, you can sign up to The Athletic for $1.50 a month right there. Build your team. When you're done, tweet the finished roster at Lombardi himself. So this is obviously a video that is working in conjunction with that roster builder, since free agency is an integral part of this. Integral or integral? I think it's integral. Free agency is an integral part of this. Sorry, I just had a lot of Indian food. Maybe the best Indian meal I ever had. Left me a little bit tired, and I forgot how to pronounce integral. And I embarrassingly said integral, but it is okay. So sub to The Athletic to build your own 49ers roster. Again, this is what it looks like. Should give you an excellent opportunity to play the roles of Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. Anyway, I am now going to constrict this to make it a little bit smaller, make my face a little bit bigger. What you see is the 49ers list of free agents. In red, you've got the pending unrestricted free agents. In yellow, or gold, if you will, you have the list of pending restricted free agents. And then in green, you have the exclusive rights free agent. The one exclusive rights free agent, I guess pending exclusive rights free agent in receiver Juwan Jennings. So stay or leave is the game. We're going to go through this list and evaluate whether these guys are going to stay or if they're going to leave. Why don't we start from the bottom and why don't we move up? Juwan Jennings is going to be first. The exclusive rights free agent, which means that he can only negotiate with the 49ers if they tender him. And guess what? Last week, the 49ers tendered Juwan Jennings. What does tender mean? It means they offered him a contract, a one-year deal worth essentially the minimum. That's because there's no reason to offer Juwan Jennings more since he can't negotiate with anyone else. So it's take it or leave it time for Juwan Jennings. If he leaves it, well, the 49ers own his rights for this next year. He can't negotiate with anyone else. And he has to sit out a year before he progresses to restricted free agency. So logic tells us that Juwan Jennings will almost certainly sign his exclusive rights free agent tender. That was the important step in keeping him around. And Juwan Jennings, at the very bottom of this list, will be back with the 49ers. So stay or leave. I'll fill out the sheet right now. We'll put stay. Let's move up to Colton McKivitz, Kevin Givens, and Demetrius Flanagan Foles. These are restricted free agents. How do restricted free agents work? Well, it's a little bit like the Lamar Jackson situation in that the 49ers can choose whether or not to tender them. So today when we saw with the franchise tag with Lamar Jackson, it was the non-exclusive franchise tag. It was a cheaper franchise tag, which means that the Ravens extended an offer to Lamar Jackson for $32 million per year, but he can still negotiate with other teams. In the case of restricted free agents, well, it depends on what type of offer you extend them, but they still have a chance to negotiate with other teams. The type of offer will determine what you return in compensation if you decline to match potential offers from other teams for these free agents. So there's the bottom line tender, there's the second round tender, and there's the first round tender. Just for argument's sake, say if the 49ers extend a first round tender to Colton McCoy, that'll cost a certain amount of money. If somebody else swoops in with an offer that Colton McCoy would rather take and the 49ers lose McCoy, the fact that they issued a first round tender would mean that they get a first round draft pick in return. So in the Ravens Lamar Jackson situation, this is not a restricted free agent deal, but it is a franchise tag that offers the ability for Jackson to negotiate with other teams. If somebody swoops in and gives Jackson an offer that the Ravens do not want to match, the Ravens will be entitled to 2 first-round draft picks. So same kind of deal, but on a smaller scale for these restricted free agents. My prediction is Colton McCoy, 49ers really like him. You know, I don't know if they want him to be the successor to Mike McGlinchey at right tackle as a starter. I haven't gotten a read on that yet, but I do know that over limited time, McKivitz developed into a better pass blocker than Mike McGlinchey last year, had better pass blocking metrics. Run blocking, probably worse. McGlinchey, obviously, really, really good at that portion of the game. But the 49ers have been talking as if they're going to lose their starting right tackle, Mike McGlinchey, like he's going to price himself out of their market. And if that's the case, they definitely don't want to lose his immediate backup. So in the spirit of keeping affordable offensive linemen that can keep the line moving, the 49ers do need, I think, at least 7 quality O linemen. Some would argue 8. You extend a second round tender to somebody like Colton McCoy and you hold on to him. I think that's what's going to end up happening. By the way, if they extend the second round tender and Colton McCoy signs elsewhere, the 49ers will get a second round draft pick in return. And I think that they would be more than happy with that type of compensation. Kevin Givens, restricted free agent. I think the 49ers might be able to hold on to Givens with the original round tender, which would be the original round in which Kevin Givens was drafted, which was he wasn't drafted. He was an undrafted free agent, so they would get no compensation in return. But it's also the cheapest possible contract of just over $2 million for the season. And I think if nobody else wants to come in on the Kevin Givens sweepstakes, 49ers can get him to stay for that low price. Demetrius Flanagan Foles. I think that he, to the 49ers, is not worth the original round tender amount of $2+ million as a backup linebacker. Nothing against Flanagan and Foles, but, good special teams player. The 49ers, though, are loaded with good special teams players. And also in that linebacker room, they're really deep. So I don't think that Flanagan Foles is going to get what he is looking for on a second contract from the 49ers. I think he is going to leave. Jordan Matthews, tight end. He was recovering from a torn ACL last year. I think he's going to be a tight end U again this offseason. Obviously, a wide receiver to tight end transition project. Do the 49ers like his recovery enough to bring him in on that offseason roster, or do they load up on rookie tight ends? I think that the latter is more likely. I think that Jordan Matthews will not be around next year. Jason Verrett. Oh, boy. I don't know where Jason Verrett is in his recovery currently. I wish I would have asked John Lynch at the Combine, but I forgot. At the end of the month, I'll be at the NFL owners meetings. Maybe get a little bit more information on Jason Verrett at that point. The last time that Jason Verrett got hurt, the season-ending injury, he signed a 1-year flyer deal with the 49ers. He's done that twice, right? He did it after the Achilles, and he did it after the ACL, and then there's another, there's been so many of these season injuries for Jason Verrett that I've lost track. This most recent one was an Achilles. There was an ACL in Detroit in 2021, but he came aboard on a flyer in 2022. And I would think that the 49ers would be more than willing to extend another flyer on Jason Verrett if he is, in fact, rehabbing and does want to get back in the league. Because guess what? It doesn't cost you anything to extend that flyer. So I just don't know if Jason Verrett is tapping out at this point or if he's going to keep on training hard to try to come back. So I'm just going to leave this with 2 question marks because I need more information for Jason Verrett. Jordan Willis, edge rusher. Man, Jordan Willis, sneaky good player. great locker room guy. The most impressive 49ers interview that I have heard over my 6 years covering the team was Jordan Willis in the week after the Packers win, after he was the one that blocked the punt that set up the Talanoa Hufanga touchdown. And Willis didn't do a post-game press conference, so his midweek press conference was about why he didn't do a post-game press conference. And he wanted to save the spotlight for other members of the team and what he thought was a true team effort to get that far. I mean, as somebody who loves sports, it would give you chills. What Jordan Willis, the most soft-spoken guy, said, he also hustles on the field. Remember the fumble recovery against Washington? We had to leap up in the air, grab that ball, rip it away from everybody else. Had a couple sacks this year that were real eye-openers. You know, I think that he's a player that the 49ers will truly value because of his outsized contributions to them in crunch time. I think they're able to bring Jordan Willis back as rotational depth on their defensive line. Jake Brendel, the center. The competition for Jake Brendel, I think, is going to be between the 49ers, who really want the third best pass protecting center in the league back. I mean, Brendel literally was number 3. Corey Linsley was number 1 in that stat. And we know that Linsley's an all-pro. Brendel has been awesome in his development from light center coming out of UCLA in 2016 to where he's at now, 300-pounder who can anchor, who obviously can run block. We saw it in Mexico City against Budda Baker. I mean, this is a good center, and I think the competition is going to come down to the 49ers and Bobby Slowick's Houston Texans. Former 49ers pass game coordinator is going to want a familiar center in his system in Houston. Can the 49ers outbid the Texans? I don't know if they want to get into a bidding war. I think Brendel just wants to get paid fair dollar. I think center stability is important enough for the 49ers to make sure that they win out in whatever this sweepstakes might turn into. I think probably only a few million per year, but it's definitely something worth paying for. I think that Jake Brendel stays because of that. I think the 49ers have a track record of paying for the center position. They still haven't been able to glean enough stability there over the years, despite paying Weston Richburg, but despite paying Alex Mack, he then retired right after. So the 49ers now can find that stability through Jake Brendel. T.Y. McGill, rotational defensive lineman this past year. Did he do enough to earn, a little bit of a contract elsewhere? I think the 49ers would only be able to pay him on a minimum basis. They initially signed him off of a practice squad this year, if I remember correctly. They signed him to a practice squad after he started the season as just a preseason player for Minnesota. Played really well in the preseason against the 49ers. McGill's got some pass rushing juice. The question is, did he show enough in fairly limited time to go and sign somewhere for a few $100,000 more than the 49ers might be willing to pay him? It's really possible. So I think that T.Y. McGill will probably leave. But that's just a guess. Ross Dwelley. Ross has been around for a long time. Since 2018, undrafted free agent tight end. This is a year of a really good tight end class in the draft. The 49ers have 10 draft picks to be able to hit those middle rounds hard. Dwelley has, really fallen out of the rotation over time. He had a much more prominent role earlier in his career and in 2019 when things really peaked than he did this past season. Charlie Werner definitely ahead of him on the depth chart. I think the 49ers do want to pair a plus receiving tight end with George Kittle. The draft and this great tight end class might finally be the chance to do that. I think for the first year, we're going to say that Ross Dwelley is not going to be coming back. But again, offseason depth is a different thing than 53-man depth. Do I think that Ross Dwelley will make the 53-man roster? Not if the 49ers put in the type of investment I expect them to in the draft at the tight end position. But the 90-man roster is a different beast. You can carry 5, even 6 tight ends on that and then narrow it down past that. Maurice Hurst. I mean, this is interesting. I'm sure the 49ers can get Hurst back at a league minimum coming off the torn biceps. Haven't seen him in a long time because that happened before the season. They put him on season-ending IR. So I think Hurst is going to stay and be on that 90-man roster. Deshaun Gibson, what a story last year. The safety was the number 1 safety of all NFL safeties in passer rating allowed, 55.7 passer rating allowed into his coverage, 5 interceptions, more than Jaquiski Tartt had in his entire career with the 49ers. 10 years older, Deshaun Gibson was in Talanoa Hufanga, and they both just meshed. Inspired Hufanga inspired him. Deshaun Gibson might be 33 this next year, but according to John Lynch of the Combine, He wants to keep on playing. He doesn't want to retire. And I think the 49ers want to keep him in their defensive backfield. It worked too well last year to not try to continue. Josh Johnson, this is a quick one. Josh Johnson is not going to be around next year. 49ers need to boost that quarterback room. Johnson was the first quarterback that didn't give the 49ers a good chance to win this year. Thought Trey Lance gave him a good chance to win. I thought that Jimmy Garoppolo gave him a good chance to win. Thought that Brock Purdy gave him a good chance to win. When it got to QB4 and Josh Johnson, nothing against him. I mean, we were talking about a 36-year-old QB here. They didn't have a good chance to win against Philadelphia. Tyler Croft, the tight end. Croft, he surpassed Dwelley on the depth chart this past year. He surpassed Charlie Warner on the depth chart. But again, tight end, he wasn't good enough to be a dynamic pair with George Kittle in the pass game. And I think Kyle Shanahan really, really longs for that. So I think that Tyler Croft, good veteran, good year for the 49ers. I don't think that he will be back. Harry Heider, really interesting piece. He's a Kaseric guy. I thought that Heider, the 49ers were really thin on the inside this past year. So he played almost all of his snaps at defensive tackle. He was nowhere near as effective as he was at defensive end on the edge when he had a career year with the 49ers in 2020. That career year led to Heider being paid by the Seattle Seahawks. And the Seahawks played him on the inside where he was nowhere near as good as he was on the edge with the 49ers. The 49ers have 4 edge rushers that are on expiring contracts this year. I've already talked about one of them, Jordan Willis. I said that he's going to stay. I don't think that all of them are going to be able to stay because Sansa Mebucom and Charles Omenihu are going to command too much money. But I think that Kerry Heider, with his inside-out versatility and the fact that edge rushers are leaving, will stay. The Sarek guy is going to fit into the 49ers price structure on an inexpensive deal. Hassan Ridgeway, his season cut short when they couldn't bring him off of IR there at the end because they had used all their IR return designations. I thought he played a good defensive tackle for the 49ers, but they weren't. That was the weakest part of the defense. I think they're going to need more pass rushing juice. I think they might go to the draft there, but they also probably have to look into free agency for a budget option. For that reason, not sure if Ridgeway comes back. I'll say leave, but I am not confident on that one at all. Daniel Brunskill. They love Daniel Brunskill. They're going to try to bring this guy back. Brunskill, Swiss Army knife, has played every single O-line position for the 49ers ever since he arrived in 2019. He's put out fires at tackle, and if you're losing Mike McGlinchey, I don't think you could lose Daniel Brunskill. That's the right tackle, Mike McGlinchey. If you're losing Jake Brendel, or if you risk losing Jake Brendel, you can't lose Daniel Brunskill because he was your backup center this past year. So in the interest of roster flexibility, Daniel Brunskill sticking around. Robbie Gould. Oh, this is an interesting one. Robbie has said that he's not coming back to the 49ers. The 49ers haven't said as much in return. They've said we're going to scout kickers at the NFL Combine. I think that the 49ers would love to have Robbie Gould back at their price, and I think Robbie Gould is driving a hard bargain just like he tried to do in 2019. The franchise tag deadline was today on Tuesday, and the 49ers did not use their tag like they did on Gould in 2019. So Gould has got a little bit more flexibility as a pending unrestricted free agent. But he's also 40 years old. And, we'll see if there's a team that wants to pay a 40-year-old kicker top 3 money, which would be $5 million or above. I think the 49ers number for Gould is $4 million. That's my guess based on their finances. If Gould doesn't get what he wants in the open market, similar like Lamar Jackson and the plan with the Ravens, I think he might circle back to the 49ers for those $4 million because he wants the Hall of Fame and he wants a Super Bowl title. Best paths to those two things might be through staying with the 49ers, but the willingness has to be there for San Francisco as well. I just know this. I know that out of the 17 kickers drafted over recent years, only one of them has signed a second contract with his team. That nugget, we can credit Jordan Elliott for that. Jordan did a great job covering the combine, and he did a little look back to the past 17 kickers who were drafted. Only one has signed a second contract with his team. So the longevity and the dependability that Robbie Gould has brought to the table is hard to replace. And I think the 49ers realize this. Has there been a bit of a regression as far as leg strength? Perhaps, but it's not as big as people are acting like it is. It's, he's still kicking 84, 85%. He's been a career 86, 87% kicker. So that's probably even too small of a single season sample size to judge that he's going downhill. I think the 49ers would love to have a kickoff man with a stronger leg. That's what Mitch Wishnowsky was drafted for, but Wishnowsky's only punting now because the leg fatigue was at a point where they thought that Robbie Gould could better handle those duties. But still, field goal kicking is the most important part of this job. And I'm going to go out on a limb because some of this sounds really familiar to 2019. I'm going to say that this is going to turn around and that Robbie Gould will ultimately stay at a price that's amenable to the 49ers. Dante Johnson. I guess, it wouldn't be right to do something where Dante Johnson doesn't stay, right? Because Dante Johnson always stays with the 49ers. The thing is, he tore his ACL this past year. He felt heartbroken for him. I mean, really tough year, lost his mom the year before. I know his rehab process has begun. As I think about this, I just say it's Dante Johnson. I would be crazy to say that he was leaving. They're going to find, if he wants to keep on playing past this, he'll find a way onto that 90-man roster. I think Charles Omenihu is going to command a lot of money elsewhere. His pressure numbers were really good, and I just don't think that the 49ers can afford to keep Charles Omenihu around. Azeez Al-Shire, same thing. Restricted free agent last year. He was generating some interest there. He's an unrestricted free agent now. Based on last year, that means that he's going to get plenty of attention this season. Azeez Al-Shire leaving too. Mike McGlinchey, right tackle. John Lynch said it in as many words. He thinks that McGlinchey's not worth what he'll get from some other teams of the 49ers. To me, that is the kiss of death. I think, if McGlinchey's market passes him by, something like DJ Jones in 2021, right? Those were COVID economics with the salary cap. If that money's not there for Mike McGlinchey from another team and the 49ers can get him at a big 1-year discount, maybe they start talking. But based on what we've heard from John Lynch, it is a leave situation for Mike McGlinchey. Emmanuel Moseley coming off the torn ACL. 49ers would love for him to stay. They're talking about him as a backup, though, because they have Diomedor Lenoir held in such high regard at this point. So Moseley coming off the season-ending injury is going to have to earn his stripes on the way back. But the thing is, you need cornerback depth. And I think the fact they can get Moseley back at a potential discount because of the injury means that the 49ers will retain him. Sensum Ebukam, I think he's going to make a lot of money. And I think the fact that Ebukam and Omenihu are both leaving puts a lot of that's in my prediction. I'm not saying they're actually both leaving, but I think that Ebukam numbers weren't as good as Omenihu's, not as many pressure numbers. But if he picks up 7, 8, 9 million a year, there's no way you could pay him. They just got done paying Ebukam for $6 million a year. I think in 2021, it was definitely worth it. He's a better run stopper than people give him credit for, but the sack numbers just, the pressure numbers just weren't there in 2022 to justify the pay that Sensum Ebukam might get. So I'm going to predict leave for Sensum Ebukam, puts a big pressure on Drake Jackson, second-year player, to really fill in on that edge position moving forward, and puts big pressure on whoever else the 49ers sign or draft to make sure this edge rush keeps on firing opposite of Nick Bosa. Jimmy Garoppolo. Ken Helfrey's over twice. The 49ers didn't expect Garoppolo to be back with them last year. They certainly don't expect it this year. It's more like Jimmy leaving the 49ers than the 49ers leaving Jimmy at this point, because at a certain price, the 49ers would love to fortify their quarterback room as much as possible. But the thing is, Garoppolo is not going to meet that certain price. He's actually relatively healthy entering this offseason, doesn't have shoulder surgery in front of him. Last season, teams were spooked by the shoulder surgery. This season, there is no shoulder surgery, and Garoppolo is going to be an unrestricted free agent next week. It's hard to see, especially since both sides, especially the 49ers, have been open about this. It is hard to see a reunion this time around with the cards stacked against it. Finally, Jimmie Ward, save the most interesting case for last. Will Jimmy be back with the 49ers or not? He wants to be paid as a safety. Nickelbacks make less. The 49ers definitely want him back at nickelback. John Lynch said, though, that he wants to be a safety. I don't know how that's going to work out. Ward, though, don't forget that in 2019 or 2020, actually, the offseason, he took less from the 49ers than the Raiders offered him. That's according to Jimmie Ward himself, to stay with the 49ers. So he does enjoy being with this is the longest tenured 49er, by the way. He enjoys being with the team that drafted him first round back in 2014. Even through regime changes, Jimmie Ward has stuck around. And, now it's more complicated because that whole nickel and safety discrepancy in pay. But, there's one thing Jimmie Ward really enjoyed playing near the ball this past year. He picked up a lot of interceptions, takeaways. That was stuff that wasn't happening for Jimmie Ward earlier in his career. I just think that he's past 30 years old. The 49ers are starting to replenish their secondary, and there's got to be a safety opportunity for him somewhere to really cash out one last time, especially since he took less from the 49ers last time. And for that, I'm leaning Jimmie Ward as a leave. So out of the 49ers free agents, how many stays and how many leaves do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 stays for the 90-man roster. And for the leaves, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 leaves. So 13 leaves, 12 stays, and 1 undecided. I can't figure out what's going to be next for Jason Verrett. Hey, if he's training and he could come back on a prove-it deal, I'm sure the 49ers won't mind. So that's 49ers free agents, stay or leave. Those of you just joining, this is the topic of the day. Build your own 2023 49ers. Can you assemble a successful 49ers 53-man roster? And this is the sheet that you use to assemble it. There's a lot of good stuff that you can do. Like if you trade Deebo Samuel, you'll just blow a ton of money and the 49ers will be over the cap. As you can see, that went from blue to red. So don't trade Deebo Samuel. Not a good idea. But hey, you can sign QBs. You can sign Jimmy Garoppolo if you want. Just enough cap space to do it. But then you can't do anything else. So that's why I think Jimmy Garoppolo likely won't be back. Go to defensive tackle. Javon Hargrave might be a little too expensive, but Dalvin Tomlinson could fit into plans. Of course, if you go and restructure some players like Fred Warner, you can open up some cap space for the 49ers. Trust me on this one. If you start playing this tonight, tomorrow, you will be addicted. And you want to be addicted because your boss will be mad at you. The 49ers will be more important in your life than your boss and your work, and that's all fun and games. So I hope that you do indeed check it out. So that is the 49ers roster builder. Sub to The Athletic to get there and tweet your finished roster at Lombardi himself. All right, 30-minute show. Good times today. Hope you enjoyed it. Stay or leave, 49ers free agents. We will talk to you tomorrow. A lot happened today between Lamar Jackson. Got a video about that and some more cuts. And we're just setting the table. Franchise tag deadline has come and gone. 49ers haven't used it. We are setting the table for the new league year next week. So get excited. Late Night Lombardi is here for that very purpose. Everybody take care. Sub to the channel right now. Go and do it. Run and do it. And I will talk to you all very, very soon.